Hi guys! I'm so excited to show you this new project. It's one that I just made up and it's one that's going to teach you and show you one of the things that you're learning about in science, which is gravity. Now, before we get going, we need to make sure we've got our supplies. You will need scissors. You will need a pencil, pen, or marker. I'm using a black Sharpie so that you can see it nice and clearly. You will need string or yarn or ribbon or anything, but you do need this in order for the project to work. Otherwise, you can just draw along with us. And you will need tape. Tape is definitely recommended over glue for today. If you any tape will work. It can be scotch tape, it can be masking tape, it can be painter's tape, it can be duct tape. I don't really care. And then you will also need some thin cardboard. I'm using this waffle box that I've already cut. If you don't have a big piece like this, a smaller piece will work, or even just the size of like a toilet roll or a paper towel roll. Um, However, you do want it to be about as long as a piece of paper is long, up and down like this. Oh, and you'll also need paper. You can either use one sheet of printer paper and a scrap, or if you have colored paper, I recommend using blue, green, red, and brown unless your cardboard is already brown. I'm going to show you how to do the project with both, with just the white paper and with the colored paper, because I know not all of us have the same materials at home. So, we are going to be making a tree, an apple tree. And I will explain why as we're working. I'm pretty excited about it though. So to start, you do want, as I said, your cardboard to be about as tall as your paper is. My cardboard is a little bit bigger than my paper, so I'm going to be trimming the cardboard later on, and that's all right. We are going to set the cardboard aside for now, and we're instead going to start with drawing our tree. So the important part of this project is going to be the puppet mechanism that we're making. It's not as much the tree, so you don't have to worry too much about the tree, but I do want your paper to be up and down, which is called portrait, up and down portrait. If you're just drawing on the single white piece of paper, start with making a trunk by having two curved lines, and then make a V near the top but still quite a bit down in those curved lines. Make another V, two smaller ones at the end. So a V and two diagonal lines. And then you can add some more branches if you want by making more V's, or rather these are more like letter Y's. Maybe some of them are long, maybe some of them stick out a bit, or they move. Don't spend too long on your branches though, because what's most important is having the tree done. And then go ahead and don't just add bushes like a cloud. Make the leaves kind of come out by having long curved lines. Long curved lines. Looks more like a tree than just regular bushes. Some are big, some are small. Have these long curved lines that go all the way around the branches that you made. Okay? If you do have cardboard and if you do have colored paper, then I want you to do the same kind of thing. I am going to draw the tree trunk on my cardboard and my branches. So I'm going to show you one more time. If you were still drawing your tree, now's a great time for you to finish adding in any details you wanted while I work on this. So again, if your cardboard is white, You can still do this because some trees, like birch trees and aspen trees, have white bark. Okay, that looks cool. And then I'm going to do the bush part of my tree on this paper. I'm still going to turn it to the side because I want the project to be this type of, gosh, what is this word I'm trying to think of? I'm really struggling. I still want it to be a green tree bush. Okay. All right. So we've got the tree top, we've got the branches. This one is completely done. So again, if you are using this paper, what I want you to do while I'm talking and helping out your classmates who have colored paper is color. Maybe you're going to color the trunk brown, maybe you're going to color the green leaves green, maybe that's a fall tree and you want to do warm colors and the background should be colored blue, probably. So you color, and everyone else, I want you to go ahead and cut out your green treetop. You'll notice I just cut it out really quickly without paying attention to the leaves. Now that I've cut out the shape, it's easier for me to move it in my hand and cut around. This would be a lot harder cutting out these leaves if I had to cut using the whole entire paper. And now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why we're making a tree when our lesson is gravity. Well, maybe you've already heard this story, but there was a scientist one day named Isaac Newton. And Isaac Newton, when he was in the garden one day, he was just thinking, enjoying the good weather, sitting and loving the sun the way you do, in an apple orchard. And the story goes that as he's sitting underneath an apple tree, an apple falls on his head. And from that moment, he said to himself, "Why did the apple fall down?" Sorry, I was lifting my stuff up so you couldn't even watch me cut. Why did the apple fall down? Why didn't it fall left or right? I'll pause the story for now. Next, what I want to do is cut out my tree trunk. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing where I'm cutting along my line. You know what, I can lift this up a bit. And cut into those branches. I hope those of you who are coloring are having a great time. Okay, now I have this big part and I get to work on the finer details of the tree. And since I've already showed you the technique, I'm going to do some YouTube magic here. And when I come back, the tree will be done. Ta-da! Okay, so we have our tree. We have either the white tree or the cardboard tree. We have our green piece and we have our blue piece. Now I'm going to do my very first step of gluing. Oh my goodness, there's a teeny tiny detail that I missed. Do you ever do that? Sometimes you just miss a detail. Okay. Oh, look at that. I do want glue. Oops. Oh well, I already told you just to use tape, so I'll just tape it down. It's not the end of the world. However, if you have glue and you are using the colored paper technique, Either a glue stick or a glue bottle would be great for this. I normally recommend glue stick over glue bottle. However, when you're gluing cardboard to paper, glue bottle works a little bit better. Okay, I'm just going to use my tape. We all know that that works out well. I did go and buy myself some glue. Okay, so I'm going to glue the branches over the green, see how nice that looks, and then I'm going to glue or tape the tree trunk down, and I'm going to glue or tape it into the blue sky. All right. Look how good our tree looks so far. Now my cardboard's hanging off the edge, so I'm going to go ahead and trim it. And if you have already colored this and you're ready, I also want you to glue a piece of glue or tape, a piece of cardboard onto the back. Do you see how when I hold it up to the light, you can tell that the cardboard is directly over the middle of the tree? That's what I need you to do. And make sure it's behind your picture. Don't cover up that beautiful picture you just spent so long drawing and coloring. Okay? Respect yourself, respect your art. Okay. Next, it's time for us to make our puppet mechanism. Now, you should have a piece of scrap paper. Whether it's red or not is fine. But you should have a piece of scrap paper, and we're going to make an apple. Let me show you how to make a quick little apple. Now, believe it or not, when you're making an apple, if you're not using pencil, you actually want to start with a little stem. So we're going to make 2 curved lines with a little line on the bottom, and then behind the stem a big curve, like a letter C, and then another one all the way up to the top. And I like to have it curve at the top. There's our apple. And then if you have more of this red paper, or green, since apples are sometimes green, you can make more apples following the same procedure so that you can have other apples in the top of your apple tree. That's totally optional though. What I care most about is this apple. It should be pretty big. It should be a lot bigger than actually makes sense scientifically with your tree. And by the way, I just showed you a very bad thing. You should always keep your things that you draw on paper far off to the side. So go ahead and cut out your apple, the big one. Make sure it's not bigger than your tree, but still pretty darn big. I recommend having it about as big as 2 or 3 fingers. Okay, compared to our tree, this is how big it looks. Okay? All right, we are ready to make this apple so that it can fall out of the tree. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited, you guys. I haven't done this before. So, now we're going to take our scissors and you're going to cut a tiny hole in the middle of your tree, in the green part, right in the middle. I was showing you too low. So what I like to do is just put my scissors in there and kind of wiggle them. This hole doesn't have to be perfect. That's an ugly hole. Ugly. But that's okay. If you have a hole puncher, you can use that too, but I'm sure not a lot of us do. And then I want you to put one down near the very bottom, not all the way at the bottom. That's going to be too low, and then your project won't work. Maybe about 2 fingers from the bottom. Do the same thing. However, this time you're poking through cardboard, so it's going to be harder. You're going to need to cut, trim, maybe even. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my cardboard right in the middle, and then I'm going to take my scissors and cut into the fold. That works a lot better. I'm going to cut twice so that I make a little V shape, and then I can pop out a hole. Okay. All right. That would have been a lot prettier in the top as well. We've got two holes, one on the bottom, one on the top. Do the same thing if you're doing this. Put one in the bottom, one in the bottom, one in the top. From this point on, I'm only going to use this one. However, it's the same project, same process as well. Next, it's time to get your string ready. Put your apple aside. You don't need it yet. And your string doesn't have to be super long, but what you need to do is take your string, measure from one hole to the next, put your finger there, grab it, slide it, one hole to the next, put your finger there, grab it, slide it, and one third time. And now my string's being silly. It doesn't want to pull. Put your finger there. Okay, 3 times. Then I'm going to cut it. Okay, and now this is cool. We're going to take our string and take our project, and I'm going to put the string through the hole on the top. Push it through with your finger so that it comes out the other side. And then you should have more string, and you should do it on the bottom hole as well. Push it through the bottom hole, out the other side. So now it should look like this. And I'm thinking that I just did that backwards. So what I'm going to do, if you followed my directions, that's great. But I'm going to undo it. I actually want you to do the same thing on the front. Push it through the front of the tree. Like I said, guys, this is the first time I've made this. And pull it out the other side. There's the bottom. Push it through the bottom of the hole. Pull it out the other side. There's the bottom. So it should be right along the top and hanging out on the bottom, like that. Now, pull it pretty tight, but not so tight that your paper bends. Just tight enough that your paper kind of floats. Ooh! And then I want you to tie a knot. So just like you're tying your shoes, but watch, if the paper bends, you need to loosen it. If your knot is kind of floating in the sky, that's okay. That's much better than having it bend. However, if you can, it's best to make sure the paper is flat when you tie your knot. You're doing a double knot. So what Mrs. Hendricks does is she ties it once, and then I put my ring finger over it so I can use my other fingers to tie. If that's too hard for you, ask a friend or a family member for help holding the string while you tie. Now, let's test it so far. I've got my string. Can I move it up and down? Let's try moving it the other way. Still works. Okay. So now what you're going to do, I would recommend putting the knot either all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom. Let's start with all the way at the bottom. Put the knot all the way at the bottom. And then flip it over. So you've got your tree with a big piece of white thread down the middle. This thread represents gravity because remember our story? Isaac Newton was hit on the head by an apple. He wondered, why does that apple fall down? Why doesn't it fall to the side or up? People had already noticed that things fall down, of course, but Isaac was one of the first people to wonder why. So while I was talking, I got a small piece of tape. I'm going to take that tape. Actually, it's kind of better like this, isn't it? I'm going to take that tape and put it sticky side up under the top of the string, all the way up in the bushy green apple tree. Now I've got a piece of tape hanging out right there. I'm going to take my apple and I'm going to push it onto the tape. This is why tape is better than glue for this step because you would have to wait a long time for glue on string to dry, but tape is done immediately. And then one last thing I'm going to do because I have tape. If you made cardboard like I did, we want to make a nice little bridge. So I'm putting a smooth piece of tape over the cardboard where my tree makes a V shape. This is so the apple doesn't get stuck on the tree. when we do this really cool puppetry that we're going to do. So now this is where if you have extra apples, you can cut them out and glue them all over the top of your tree. Maybe some are hanging over here, maybe some have already fallen. But we have our apple, and you could even draw a cute little Isaac Newton down there and then have the, oh my goodness, this is hard to do with one hand. Have the apple fall. Whoop! And I'm doing that by pulling my string on the back. Where I made that knot, I'm pulling the knot. If I pull the knot down, the apple goes up the tree. It breaks the laws of gravity. If I pull the knot up, the apple goes down the tree. It follows the rules of gravity. That's really cool, huh? All right, so go ahead and get that done. And I can't wait to see it. I hope it all works. I'd love to see you use your apples to tell the story of Isaac Newton and gravity.